airstrikes are launched on Gaza as unrest escalates into the worst violence between Israel and the Palestinians in 7 years. 35 people have died this week. A state of emergency has been declared in the Israeli city of Lod after rocket attacks killed a man and a girl. Worried US drivers line up at the pumps after a cyber attack on a fuel pipeline brings supplies to a virtual halt. Italy's Prime Minister scrambles a task force to deal with a migrant surge on the island of Lampedusa as more than 2,000 arrive from North Africa in 4 days.
This is the third straight day of arrivals. The question is whether this is just a temporary spike or whether it is the start of a summer rush to Europe's shores.
Little Mix!
And the night belonged to female artists as they dominated the Brit Awards in front of a 4,000-strong crowd in London. A very warm welcome to the programme. It is turning into the worst violence between Israel and the Palestinians in 7 years, and the United Nations has warned the conflict is moving towards full-scale war. 35 people have now died. Overnight, the militant group Hamas said they'd launched another 200 rockets towards Israel from Gaza. Police in the Israeli city of Lod said a man and a girl were killed after their car was hit by a rocket. A state of emergency has been declared there. Israel has launched more airstrikes on Gaza City too, with loud explosions, as you just heard. This is dawn this morning. There are reports police headquarters there have been destroyed. In Tel Aviv, sirens have been heard warning of rocket fire, and several explosions were heard as the Hamas rockets reach the city. And earlier in the West Bank city of Ramallah, there were clashes near a checkpoint between hundreds of Palestinian demonstrators and Israeli security forces. There's also reports of further clashes in Jerusalem. Our Middle East correspondent Tom Bateman has this report from Jerusalem, which does contain some scenes you may find disturbing.
A street ablaze on Israel's normally bustling coastline. People run for shelter. Others have a lucky escape. But in a nearby suburb, a woman was killed as a building took a direct hit. In a single barrage, militants fired 130 rockets from Gaza deep into Israel. A clear sign both sides are into a round of steep escalation.
Hamas and Islamic Jihad have paid, and I tell you here, they will pay a very high price for their aggression. I say here tonight, their blood will be on their heads.
Earlier, Israel struck a Gaza tower block which had been evacuated. It was home to members of the Palestinian militant group Hamas, which warned it would target Tel Aviv if the building was hit. Israeli airstrikes have pounded Gaza. Panic arrives here just after the warplanes. Inside this block, says Israel, 3 militant leaders were killed. Some of the worst fighting in years is leaving lives scattered. Among Gaza's victims, 11-year-old Hussein Hamad. Why did you kill him? Asks Hussein's uncle. They kill, and there is no one to make them answer for it. The whole world is watching. Israel says Hamas is endangering civilians on both sides with its rocket fire. It follows weeks of boiling tensions in Jerusalem, always at the heart of this conflict. It spilled over at Al-Aqsa Mosque compound, with further confrontation before dawn today. With the fighting reaching a fierce level of intensity tonight, both sides are vowing to continue their attacks.
Well, I'm now joined by Sergei Khani, who's Israel's ambassador to Singapore, where he is joining us from. Welcome to the programme. First of all, your reaction to the intensity of the fighting over the last few days.
Good morning, Sally. Thanks for having me. It's quite a severe situation. Our cities are under attack, and we have to keep more than 1 million kids at home today. They cannot go to school. We have more casualties, as you have reported, in Israel, and it seems like it's going worse and worse.
This time yesterday, we were talking about how the international community is calling for calm. As you say, it is getting more intense and more violent and volatile by the day. Where do you see this going? At what point will someone make a move to bring calm in the situation?
Well, I mean, we have called for a long time, but unfortunately, weeks of incitement by Palestinian Authority, Hamas, and Islamic Jihad had led to this terrible violence. So we expect the international community to call on the Hamas and the Islamic Jihad and other organizations to cease fire, stop shooting at Israeli towns and cities. And we definitely encourage the international community to engage with the Palestinian Authority in order for them to stop, one, the incitement, and second, the violence. And we hope that this will work and will bring this round of violence to an end.
The international community has been calling for both sides, the UN in particular, to cease fire, but where's the resolution going to come from? And when we say international community, who should be driving it? Is this a job for the United States?
Well, the United States, of course, is the most important element, but I believe that there are other countries that can influence and call for this stop of terror activity on behalf of the Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and whoever is going to be able to make them cease fire is welcome.
In terms of Arab states being helpful in this situation, your thoughts on that?
Well, Israel enjoy good relations with many Arab countries. I mean, if they can influence, they would be blessed. But we need to be, a bit realistic here. I don't see at the moment Hamas is inclined to stop and take responsibility for this deterioration. It seems that at the moment they enjoy and think that they got support. Contrary to perhaps what we see, it seems to me that in their perception they enjoy quite a lot of support, and this is of course wrong, and this is leading to more violence. In
terms of the situation, the political instability on both sides is making things more difficult, isn't it? In Israel, several elections in the last year, the government of Benjamin Netanyahu not stable by some people's perceptions. In Palestine, they've cancelled elections there. This has all come to a real head at this point, hasn't it?
Well, I think the fact that the Palestinians decided to postpone the elections, and they haven't had elections since 2006, so we're talking about 15 years without elections. This is definitely there on the legitimacy of the Palestinian Authority, but nevertheless, the Palestinian Authority is there, and they have responsibility, and they need to stop this incitement. They need to put an end to the violence. And when it comes to the Hamas is an Islamofascist organization. It's not an organization that we're going to negotiate with.
Ambassador Khani, we appreciate your time on BBC News, and let's show you now pictures of Gaza City this morning. You can see there plumes of smoke following Israeli airstrikes through the night. As we've mentioned, it's been a very volatile, violent night across Gaza, but also across Israel as well, where a state of emergency has been declared. More details on our website, including analysis from our Middle East editor, Jeremy Bowen. Do take a look. Now let's get some of the day's other news. A 19-year-old man is being questioned by police after 7 children and 2 adults were killed in a shooting at a school in the Russian city of Kazan. 21 other people, mostly children, were injured. A judge in the United States has dismissed a bankruptcy case involving the National Rifle Association, meaning it will now face a lawsuit that could see the organization dissolved. The NRA described the move as a baseless, premeditated attack. It declared bankruptcy in January. A former soldier who has confessed to killing an 8-year-old girl in France has been sentenced to 20 years in prison on charges of murdering another man. Police were initially looking again at 40 unsolved disappearances and cold cases, but nothing has emerged to back the theories that Nordal Lelandai was a serial killer. And the Australian airline Qantas has delayed its plans to resume international flights. The firm had been selling tickets for flights from October, but now says the restart has been pushed back to December. The Australian government has suggested the border could remain closed until the middle of next year. The knock-on effects of last week's cyber attack on a major US fuel pipeline have become all too real for some Americans. The Colonial Pipeline says it hopes to have substantial operations back underway by the end of this week, but some drivers are already panic buying fuel. This was the scene in Tallahassee, Florida earlier on Tuesday, with long lines of cars as customers try to fill up their tanks in case price rises in the days ahead. The Colonial Pipeline normally carries nearly half the East Coast supply of diesel, gasoline and jet fuel. Drivers in the states along the pipeline are worried about shortages.
It's unbelievable. When I was riding today, I thought that it was a catastrophe coming. I'm like, what's going on? I seen all these cars parked everywhere, and I was just like, OMG, I have to fill my tank up.
Well, I went down to the Exxon station, but the line was so long down there, so I came down here.
I tried like 2 or 3 more. Then they was empty. They didn't have any.
And we'll have more on that story in our business coverage. Also, still to come. The singer Dua Lipa demands a pay rise for NHS workers as she wins 2 awards at the Brits.
कुछ ना बोले तो
फूफड़ के मौसा के बेटे के रिश्ते को मना करने का टू मच प्रेशर हटाओ शादी.com पे आओ आज ही रजिस्टर कीजिए
الطريقة عم بتصل بيك مشان الشغالة المحطوط على الانترنت عندك.
When I come in quick, I look like an offer, like a slave.
Our World is a unique series of films on the BBC, offering personal insights into global events.
Sería muy prudente que no firmáramos más.
Our World, stories that speak for themselves. In Myanmar, mass protests against a military coup crushed with brutal force. We follow a brother and sister fighting for their future. As their options close, what will they do? Our World, Myanmar, the Spring Revolution on BBC World News.
You're with BBC News, the top stories. Airstrikes are launched on Gaza and unrest escalates into the worst violence between Israel and the Palestinians in 7 years. 35 people have died this week. A state of emergency has been declared in the Israeli city of Lod after rocket attacks killed a man and a girl. Now to the southern Italian island of Lampedusa, which has seen a new uptick in migrant arrivals. More than 2,000 have landed there from North Africa since Saturday, as fears grow that sea crossings are once again increasing. Italy's Prime Minister scrambled a government task force to respond to this. Our correspondent Mark Lowen sent this report from Lampedusa.
Shadows seeking the light of Europe.
After days at sea, each step on land is controlled. They risked a perilous crossing from Libya, buffeted by high winds. And even though they're detained here in Italy and taken to guarded camps, they're safe and alive. By day 2 they arrive, more migrants picked up at sea, aiming for the island of Lampedusa. Over 2,000 landing here since the weekend. This gateway to Europe is under renewed pressure, battling the pandemic while carrying the hopes of the desperate. 6 years since the height of Europe's migrant crisis, they are still coming, in lesser numbers now, but this is the third straight day of arrivals. The question is whether this is just a temporary spike, or whether it is the start of a summer rush to Europe's shores.
We are here to welcome people, to say to the people, you are alive, but we also want to say to the people, welcome in Europe. And your rights are important to us, we take care of you. But in this moment, we don't feel this.
For the EU's frontier countries like Italy, migration remains an intensely political issue. And for some here, the hospitable welcome has worn thin.
Adesso è arrivato il momento di dire basta.
It's time to say enough after 30 years. I want the camp to be closed immediately and a naval blockade so that they can't access the island. They should be helped in their own countries, not come here where the authorities spend millions on them, but let us die.
Through Europe's outer door into a waiting room, but with the camp full, dozens are left outside. Many here will have asylum claims rejected, but it's unclear how many of those will actually be sent back. You speak some English, yes? Okay. We can't speak to people.
No.
Non è permesso?
No, assolutamente. Assolutamente.
Okay, we're being told that we can't speak to the migrants. But from inside the camp, the stories came to us.
I want to walk. I want to feed my family. They are dying. I lost about four sisters, all because of hunger.
Robbers come to your house, my own house in Libya, and robbed me. Every right now, this hand I can't use this hand and do something with it.
What about people who would say to you that you have come in an illegal way?
No problem. Let them say I come an illegal way because they don't know what happened. So let them say that. But if they ask me, they hear the main story, they will understand my pain.
It's hand to mouth here, but for some, this is better than what they left behind. And as long as dreams of Europe remain, many more will follow in their tracks. Mark Lowen, BBC News, Lampedusa.
Now let's catch up on all the sports stories.
Hello, I'm Austin Halewood with your latest sports news. Once again, Manchester City have been crowned English Premier League champions, and they did it on Tuesday night without even kicking a ball. Leicester City's win at Old Trafford meant that Manchester United would not be able to catch their City rivals, so Pep Guardiola's side win the title for the third time in 4 years.
I've been in Spain, I've been in Germany, and I can say this is the toughest one. This is the toughest league, I would say by far. And for many, many reasons, and achieve five Premier Leagues in 10 years means a lot for this organization.
Well, meanwhile, the title race is still very much alive in Spain, and Barcelona missed the chance to go top of La Liga after they were held to a 3-3 draw by Levante. Barca were 2-0 and then 3-2 up before an equaliser in the 83rd minute from Sergio Leon. Earned Levante a draw. Atletico Madrid remain a point clear of Ronald Koeman's side with a game in hand. And there'll have been celebrations throughout Lisbon on Tuesday night because Sporting have won the Portuguese league for the first time since 2002. A 1-0 win at home to Boavista was enough to secure the title. January signing Paulinho scoring the only goal of the game as Sporting went on to take the championship with 2 matches to spare, and they could still finish the season unbeaten. Now, Novak Djokovic is through to the 3rd round of the Rome Masters, although it wasn't without drama.
How much more you want to play?
I'm going to check the court.
I asked you 3 times, you're not checking anything.
You didn't ask to check
Yeah, the world number 1 was furious furious with the chair umpire for not suspending play as the rain came down during his second round match against Taylor Fritz. He eventually got his wish, and after a 3-hour delay, he sealed his progress with a straight sets win over the American.
Look, it's not the first time nor probably the last time that I'm going to experience such conditions. And even though with that much experience behind me, I still get upset and lose my cool. But it's okay.
The Giro d'Italia continues on Wednesday with a flat 177-kilometre stage that should see the sprinters come back into play. UAE Team Emirates rider Joe Dombrowski of the United States took his first ever Grand Tour stage win on Tuesday with victory in stage 4. Alessandro Di Marchi took the pink jersey from fellow countryman Filippo Ganna after finishing second. And the heavyweight title fight everyone wants to see, Anthony Joshua against Tyson Fury, looks set to take place in Saudi Arabia. Promoter Eddie Hearn confirmed the location, with the fight likely to take place on either the 7th or the 14th of August. Joshua fought in the Saudi capital Riyadh in December 2019 when he won a rematch against Andy Ruiz Jr. We can get all the latest sports news at our website. That's bbc.com/sport. But from me, Austin Hayward, and the rest of the sport team, bye for now.
Our thanks to Austin and the team for all those sports stories. Now, female artists dominated the Brit Awards ceremony in London last night. The 4,000-person crowd, which included key workers, wore no masks and weren't required to social distance, as the ceremony was a part of the UK government's live events trial. Colin Patterson has the details.
A duo win for Dua Lipa. She performed with 50 dancers, gave a nod to Geri Halliwell with her dress, and won both Best Female and Album of the Year for Future Nostalgia. Released last March during the very first week of lockdown, her modern take on disco became the soundtrack to many people's year at home. On stage, she called for an NHS pay rise.
We should all give a massive, massive round of applause and give Boris a message that we all support a fair pay rise for our frontline. Thank you so much. Little Mix!
It was a night dominated by women, winning 4 of the 5 mixed categories. After 10 years together, Little Mix became the first all-female lineup in Brits history to be named Best Group.
It's not easy being a female in the UK pop industry. We've seen the white male dominance, misogyny, sexism, and lack of diversity.
Taylor Swift was given the Global Icon Award.
I need you to hear me when I say that there is no career path that comes free of negativity. If you're being met with resistance, that probably means that you're doing something new.
Harry Styles won Best Single and appeared to have a new accent.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here and proud to be celebrating British music tonight.
Shut up. Shush. While Lewis Capaldi's voice could hardly be heard at all. Busy night for the guy on the bleeper button. While a live highlight was Elton John's duet with Ollie Alexander from the Channel 4 AIDS drama, It's a Sin.
It's a sin.
The Brits are part of the government's pilot scheme to help live music return. To gain entry, everyone had to provide a negative COVID test. Both the audience...
Negative. Clear. Negative.
...and the stars.
Sticks a swab right down the back of your neck and you're up a little bit.
Not your normal preparation for the Brit Awards, is it?
No, not really.
More than 4,000 mask-free fans were inside, with half the tickets going to COVID frontline staff.
These gorgeous things.
Ya, target raise up ke depan seperti itu.
The
притесняват, но със сигурност трябва да се мобилизират, да се информират. Сега аз чисто практично бих им така казал да участват във всички семинари, които АЛА организира за родители, като една от многото добавени стойности на Асоциацията за лицеви аномалии, именно това да преподава там експертите, да преподават на родителите точно какви грижи трябва да бъдат предприяти. И другото е да са активни, т.е. да се чува повече и повече, за да няма и в бъдеще хора като мен, които никога не бяха чували за това състояние, докато не им се случи. Да бъдат активни, да разпространяват информацията за това състояние сред обществото.
А самите деца, какво срещат те в училище? Какъв е техният път, който трябва да...
Да, ами аз споменах, че се налага при някои деца работа с психолог. Със сигурност се прави една оценка на състоянието, на психическото състояние на детето преди тръгване на училище, дали то се притеснява от външния си вид, понеже една част от децата имат белези, други не говорят изключително правилно, така че се правят оценки на самочувствието на детето, може ли то така добре да се интегрира, общува ли с други дечица и така нататък. И съответно тези психолози също помагат, ако има проблеми, не при всички деца има, те да бъдат преодоляни още преди детето да тръгне на училище.
Вашите притеснения обаче какви бяха, когато разбрахте и казахте вече, че сте се сблъскали с нещо съвсем ново за вас, не сте знаели нищо и все по-рядко се говори, може би, за този проблем?
Да, моите начални притеснения бяха дали ще успеем да положим необходимите грижи за детето. В момента, в който така стигнахме до АЛА, разбрахме, че медицинските екипи, които са в България, имат опит. АЛА е на 25 години, те са извършили около 5000 операции. Така че това са изключително подготвени хора. Един атестат за тяхната работа и това, че най-големите световни организации, които подпомагат лечението на деца с вродени аномалии, това са Smile Train и Transforming Faces, те са едни от най-големите дарители на Асоциацията за лицеви аномалии в България. Тъй като те виждат, че тази асоциация наистина работи добре. И честно да ви кажа, когато последните ми притеснения се изпариха, когато се запознах вече и лично с екипа там, защото то е клише, но наистина толкова добро отношение, което срещнах аз там и просто ме накараха да се чувствам като част от голямото им семейство. Аз не го очаквах и много съм благодарен и всъщност това е и една от причините така много да искам да помогнем за това повече хора да чуят за тях и родителите да бъдат насочени именно към тях.
Може би на финала да ви помоля да обърнете леко тениската.
Да кажем отново 23 май,
точно така.
10 часа, бягай се с усмивка. Желаем успех на каузата.
Даренията, казваме на финала, за участие ще бъдат директно към Асоциацията за лицеви аномалии за лечение на деца с такива вродени лицеви проблеми. Пожелаваме успех, момчета, да бягате и да запазите наистина човешкото в най-висшата му форма, опознавайки историята. Наистина успех на тази кампания. Сега прекъсваме за кратко, за да видим и новините.
Кабинет и задаващите се нови парламентарни. Аз Сизиф, спектакълът, който покори света и показа живот. Наживо от Висшето училище по телекомуникации и пощи за бъдещето на новите студенти и перспективите пред тях.
Международна конференция "Образование и бизнес в зелено". 18 май, 19:30, само по телевизия България On Air. за нула време. Вече още по-лесно с мобилното приложение на NetCredit.
Милка Макс. Комбинация от неустоими съставки, текстури и вкусове. Обвиди в нежен Милка шоколад, за да вземеш максимума от всеки момент. Изживей момента на Макс.
Проблеми с съставите може да има всеки. Не само спортистите. Bestiflex 12G е нова генерация добре усвоим течен колаген. Bestiflex 12G подпомага възстановяването на ставния хрущял и подобрява еластичността на кожата и косата. Bestiflex 12 грама колаген, биотин и хиалурон в удобна доза за пиене. Здрави отвътре, красиви отвън.
Между 20 и 50% от възрастните жени са засегнати от проблема неволното изпускане на урина.
Преди избягвах смеха и физическите усилия, защото ме поставяха в неудобно положение. Помогна ми FeminHelp.
FeminHelp допринася за контрола на неволно изпускане на урина през деня и през нощта.
FeminHelp. Контролът е важен.
Първият истински 5G план в България е тук от А1. Вземи план Unlimited с неограничени минути, мегабайти и скорост за 34,99 на месец, само до края на май. Избери сега своя нов 5G телефон на супер цени, започващи от 16,99 на месец. Само поискай А1.
Коментираме Денят On Air тази вечер, веднага след централните новини.
Тази неделя очаквайте спор, може ли историята да върне руските туристи у нас? Кои са 8-те българи патриарси на Константинопол и как великите сили са играли и си играят на зарове с нашата национална съдба? Гост, доцент Йордан Йорданов и самата професор Лизбет Любенова. Неделя 16:30, операция История, предаването за нещата, които ни правят българи.
Добро утро с новините Онера в минутите след 7:30. Добро утро на слушателите на Радио България Онер. Аз съм Камелия Стоянова. Второто служебно правителство на президента Румен Радев официално встъпва в длъжност днес и ще управлява България до избора на редовно правителство. С указ на президента 45-то Народно събрание се разпуска, след като не успя да излъчи кабинет. Радев ще представи структурата, състава и приоритетите на новото правителство на церемония в Гербовата зала на Дондуков 2. Това е вторият служебен кабинет в рамките на мандата на Румен Радев. Първият държавния глава назначи в първите дни, след като встъпи в длъжност. Церемонията по приемственост в изпълнителната власт ще се проведе днес в гранитната зала на Министерския съвет. Как третият кабинет на Бойко Борисов ще предаде изпълнителната власт на служебното правителство, ще видим по-късно в емисиите ни. Очаква се Централната избирателна комисия да проведе първото си заседание в нов състав, който беше назначен вчера с указ на президента. Председателят и Камелия Нейкова, издигната от партия Има такъв народ, и членовете на комисията ще трябва да проверят колко още машини ще трябва да се закупят за предстоящия парламентарен вод през юли. Според последните правила, машини за гласуване трябва да има и в секциите в чужбина с над 300 избиратели. Централната избирателна комисия трябва да определи реда за гласуване, както и бюджета за вота. Издаването на указа за назначаването на новата 15-членна Централна избирателна комисия държавният глава обвърза с датата на предсрочните избори 11 юли, тъй като законовите срокове за подготовката им изискват 60 дни. Съветът за сигурност на ООН се събира извънредно днес, за да обсъди продължаващите размирици между израелци и палестинци. Срещата ще бъде при закрити врата. Била е поискана от Тунис, Норвегия и Китай. Това е втората такава среща на Съвета за сигурност за изминалите дни, след като при първата в понеделник не беше постигнато съгласие за общо изявление. Междувременно Израел и палестинската групировка Хамас подновиха днес въздушните удари. Хамас съобщи, че са изстреляни 200 ракети срещу Израел в отговор на техни ракети. А израелският премиер Бенямин Нетаняху обяви извънредно положение в централния град Лот, след като полицията обвини местното арабско малцинство в организирането на мащабни бунтове. Нетаняху съобщи, че това е изявление, като поясни, че в града се разполагат допълнителни подкрепления на силите на реда. Израелската полиция заяви, че мащабни бунтове, избухнали сред част от арабското население, застрашават мира и спокойствието в общността. Това стана след като израелец от арабски произход беше убит в Лот предишната вечер. Междувременно мъж и момиче са загинали в израелския град, след като колата, в която пътували, била ударена от ракета. У нас спад на броя на новите случаи на коронавирус през последното денонощие. 877 са новозаразените. Положителни са 6,6% от направените 13 190 теста. Продължава да намалява броят на настанените за лечение в болници и те вече са под 5500 души, като 535 пациенти са в интензивни отделения. Починали са 59 души с COVID-19, а като излекувани единната система посочва 2222. За последните 24 часа са поставени близо 36 000 дози ваксини, с което общият им брой за страната е вече близо 1 милион. Започва ремонтът на улица Николай Коперник в София в отсечката от булевард Чипченски проход до улица Гео Милев. За времето на строителните работи участъкът ще бъде затворен за движение на автомобили, а автобусите по линия 72 ще се движат по улица Коста Лулчев. Ще бъде изградена канализация, водопроводи, топлопроводи, електрически и телекомуникационни мрежи, както и улично осветление. Ще бъдат изградени нови тротуари и нова асфалтова настилка. Организацията на движението по пътя за София през Владая няма да се променя през следващите седмици, въпреки започващия днес ремонт в участъка от ЖП гара Владая до пътен възел Даскалово. За да не се затруднява трафикът между София и Перник и предвид предстоящите почивни дни около 24 май, поетапно ще се извършват подготвителни дейности, както и ремонтни работи извън пътното платно, съобщават от Агенция Пътна инфраструктура. По платната за движение същинския ремонт ще започне през юни, когато е предвидено да бъде ограничено движението в посока София. Алтернативен маршрут за пътуване между София и Перник е автомагистрала Струма. Временно интензивни валежи, придружени с гръмотевици днес над Западна България. Жълт предупредителен код е в сила за 12 области на страната, показват
a crise interna de desabastecimento.
All right, well, turning to the weather, was a little warmer today, I must say, and according to Evelyn Taft, well, I'll let her tell you the rest, but Ev, I think you have even a warmer forecast in store.
Oh, yes, indeed. You're right. You thought right, Pat. It is warmer. It will be warmer over the next couple of days, and then some changes on the way. But right now, we are amidst that warming trend. We're also looking at a little bit of fog currently in the forecast as well, and that's going to continue to be the case overnight through the early morning hours. So as we get a look at satellite radar, you'll see a little bit of cloud cover along the immediate coastline. That's going to make a push inland overnight through tomorrow. 72 earlier today in downtown, and you will see temperatures right now in the 60s for the most part. 67 Anaheim, 63 Irvine, and 63 in Lake Elsinore. And satellite radar tracker, you'll see a little bit of cloud cover starting to move into the picture, and then it's starting to recede back toward the coast a little bit, continuing on with that same pattern over the next few days. Eventually, we will start to see a little more sunshine at least through Thursday. Then Friday, things start to change just a touch. We're going to see high pressure move to the east, and as it does, it will be a little cooler, a little cloudier, and temperatures really starting to take a hit by the weekend. Not the case tomorrow, though. We're still in the 60s and 70s, 79 for Burbank, 71 downtown, 66 for LAX as we head to Laguna Beach, 66 degrees for tomorrow, so a little cooler along the coast. And the temperatures really continuing to stay warm through Thursday. For the valleys, we're in the 80s, the basin in the 70s, the beaches in the 60s, Friday cooler, and then Saturday and Sunday much cooler. We're really only in the 60s all weekend long. By Monday and Tuesday, we'll start to warm it up a touch. And for the IE, the high desert and the mountains, we are in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And then getting a little cooler Friday and a little cooler Saturday and Sunday, warming it up again by Monday and Tuesday of next week. But until then, warm. I mean, we're in the 90s at least through Thursday, so I'd say that's pretty warm. So yes, Pat, you were absolutely right. You were thinking there's a warm-up, and you were right.
And you know what, F? That's because I listen to you.
Oh, I love it, because that's not always the case. Maybe my husband, my kids, they don't really listen to me, but I'm glad somebody does.
Hey, we're the same club, F.
I love it.
Okay, my friend, we will see you in a bit.
All right.
And still ahead, children sickened. Is bottled water to blame tonight? New video obtained by CBS News is raising serious questions about how one brand makes its water. And one reason for the recent chicken shortage, why a major meat processor is blaming its roosters.
Concerned about the safety of LAX.
And be sure to switch over to CBS 2 tonight at 11. Major fire safety violations at LAX. What's being done? David Goldstein investigates tonight at 11.
Here's to all the DIYers and new recipe tries. Pet project starters, weekend gardeners. Rollover artists and kitchen a la cartists. Mix and matchers, make it from scratchers, tinkerers, futzers, and fixer-upperers. Here's to dabblers everywhere. Bam! There's a new lifestyle destination for your next inspiration. Dabble. Go there. Do that.
Imagine a stranger spitting in your face.
Getting assaulted for wearing a face mask.
Or getting punched in the face for not wearing one. Seeing your children attacked with a knife.
And blamed for a virus that has killed hundreds of thousands of people.
Since the outbreak of COVID-19 in the United States, hate incidents against Asian Americans have been on the rise.
In these unprecedented times, our country needs unity, not division. Let's come together and wash the hate.
We both knew if we're going to go into the world and be doctors, we want to serve our people. It feels like coming home. You can just be yourself and connect in a very real way. They walk in the door, they see a Black woman doctor, they're like, oh, hi, doctor, as if they already know me. And I feel that way too. It's more than just something to check off a box. It is truly our life's work.
Reporting from San Fernando.
In Huntington Beach.
In Malibu. Or Pasadena for CBSN, Los Angeles. Reporting in Moreno Valley.
In Sherman Oaks. In Norwalk, CBSN, Los Angeles.
Is there something in your community that David Goldstein should investigate? Email your tip to goldsteininvestigates@cbs.com or call the Goldstein Investigates tip line at 818-655-2442.
The search continues for a Bengal tiger that was seen walking loose in a Houston neighborhood. A murder suspect who police say was housing a Bengal tiger in a yard is in custody. He's identified as 26-year-old Victor Cuevas, but his attorney says Cuevas doesn't own the tiger.
Because my client was the one who caught this tiger, who went out and got it, brought it back into safety. Everyone just assuming that he's the owner of the tiger, that it's his tiger.
A look at an Instagram reportedly belonging to Cuevas shows videos of him playing with exotic animals like bears and monkeys. Federal investigators are looking into Real Water after the company's bottled alkaline water made several people sick. Real Water issued a voluntary nationwide recall, but many questions remained. Anna Werner sat down with one family whose daughter got so sick, doctors thought she might need a liver transplant.
Real Water is the world's premier enhanced bottled water.
That's Real Water founder Brent Jones in a YouTube video explaining the benefits of his company's bottled alkaline water,
including assisting with better cellular hydration and creating an antioxidant effect in the body.
They sold the water nationwide, offering home delivery of 5-gallon water bottles in Las Vegas to people like Ryan and Erica Carrier.
It's advertised quite a bit in Las Vegas. They have the trucks around town that say Real Water on it, right?
Why this particular water?
We thought we were giving the best water that our family could drink, having this alkaline pH water.
And I like the taste of it. I did.
Their 2-year-old son Finn and 5-year-old daughter Hera drank it too. But last year, Hera started getting sick.
Constant complaining, Mommy, my tummy hurts. I don't feel good.
Then, in November,
she got really violently ill. She had stopped eating at that point because all she was doing was throwing up.
Hera soon became incoherent. They rushed her to a local hospital.
You don't know what's going on with your daughter. You're putting her in the back of the car, limp, in the car seat.
It was
excruciating. Excruciating.
There, doctors told Erica the 5-year-old's liver was failing, and what's more, they couldn't treat her there. She would have to be life-flighted to Salt Lake City for a possible liver transplant.
It's absolutely like going into shock. You know, thinking that your 5-year-old might need a transplant.
How many things make you fall to your knees in life, right? We fell to our knees, right? We all prayed.
Their prayers were answered. Hera avoided a transplant. But it wasn't just their child. Over just 11 days, health authorities said 5 children between the ages of 7 months and 5 years became ill, all at risk of needing liver transplants. Health officials say the only common link between all the identified cases was the consumption of Real Water brand alkaline water. 6 weeks ago, the company announced a nationwide voluntary recall. We wanted to ask about what happened to those children, so we went to the company's office, but it was empty, just a few trucks sitting outside. Real Water later declined our request for an interview, but online, founder Brent Jones said this.
We'd like to express our deepest sympathy and concern over the events that led to the inquiry.
In a video posted to his website in March, Jones apologized to his customers.
We have issued a voluntary nationwide recall of all Real Water until the safety of our product is clearly established.
If I thought we were making people sick, I wouldn't have made it.
But this videotaped deposition of a former Real Water employee, obtained by CBS News, raises serious questions about how they made the water last fall. Casey Aiken, who was hired after working for strip clubs, said he had no experience in chemistry and only a couple hours of what he called hands-on training. But he was the one in charge of mixing a liquid concentrate into the water here at the company's offices outside Las Vegas.
As we sit here today, you don't have any idea what was in the liquid concentrate.
Not a clue.
And you don't know where it came from.
Not a clue.
Aiken said in September or October he was mixing a new batch in the tanks and got a low reading on a meter he was using to measure the water's alkalinity level. So he called his manager, Brent Jones' son Blaine, seen here in another company video, to ask what to do.
He told you they had more concentrate.
Correct.
But he didn't tell you how much.
No, he didn't tell me how much.
Aiken said he decided to add 2.5 more gallons of the concentrate to the water.
You do understand that if you potentially add more concentrate than you usually use, that there could potentially be a problem with the water.
I wouldn't think so.
You would think so.
No, I wouldn't.
Okay, but you don't know what's in the concentrate.
If I'm putting it into somebody that's ingesting it, I would think that it's safe no matter what. That's my thought.
The FDA is still investigating, but consumer advocates say the situation shows the need for stronger regulations for bottled water. Eric Olson with the NRDC.
It really is sort of the Wild West out there with a lot of smaller bottlers facing very infrequent, if any, inspections and testing by the government.
That's why the carriers say they're speaking out.
We want people to be aware.
This can't happen to any more people. It's happened to enough.
Yeah.
It's happened to enough.
The carriers have filed a lawsuit against Real Water. In a court filing, the company denied the allegations. But health authorities say all of those young children were able to be brought back to health without liver transplants. Anna Werner, Berkeley, California.
A man accused of opening fire at a Colorado birthday party before turning the gun on himself was apparently upset he wasn't invited. Police have identified the gunman as 28-year-old Teodoro Macias. They say he was in a relationship with Sandra Ibarra, one of the 6 victims. Police say Macias had a history of controlling and jealous behavior, but no reported incidents of domestic violence or criminal history. Police say he was upset about not being invited to the party, being thrown by his girlfriend's family this weekend. And in Russia, 7 children and 2 adults were killed in a school shooting today in Kazan, which is about 430 miles east of Moscow. Local media said some students were able to escape the building during the attack. Officials say 4 boys and 3 girls, all 8th graders and a teacher and school worker, died in that shooting. And at least 21 others have been hospitalized. The governor said the shooter, who has been arrested, is 19 and has a registered firearm in his name. President Vladimir Putin has offered his condolences. And tonight we're getting exclusive access to American troops as they step up their withdrawal from Afghanistan. The process should be complete this September on the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 terror attacks. Charlie D'Agata spoke with the top U.S. general in Afghanistan about the challenges ahead.
Aboard Black Hawk helicopters, we flew out of Kabul to one of the last U.S. outposts in Afghanistan. Exclusive access to Bagram Air Base, where the heavy lift of dismantling 20 years of American military infrastructure is underway. It's now the main hub for shipping out everything from heavy machinery to packing up printer cartridges as America's longest war comes to an end, and the remaining 2,500 troops get ready to come home. The commander of U.S. forces in Afghanistan, General Scott Miller, told us it's now down to the Afghan military to step up.
As you look at the fight and the violence, which is too much, the violence is too high. The Afghan security forces are prepared for it. The Afghan security forces have to hold.
They have to be ready.
That's correct.
Will they be ready?
They have to be ready.
And yet, Afghan troops have had to rely on U.S. military airstrikes to push back Taliban militants that launched a major offensive the moment the U.S. drawdown began. And the suicide car bomb in Kabul that killed dozens of girls on Saturday underscored the extreme violence that still endures here.
Violence, perhaps most concerning, is when you start seeing violence that affects civilians. Certainly an egregious attack against school children this past week. That doesn't appear to have any military purpose. That's terror.
General Miller told us the next 2 weeks will be critical. We're just ahead of a 3-day ceasefire to mark the Muslim period of Eid. He said the last time that happened, the Taliban came out fighting even harder. Charlie D'Agata, Kabul.
In tonight's business report, chickens are in short supply, and part of the blame goes to Tyson's roosters. The meat processor says its chicken volumes have been low because the roosters it uses for breeding aren't cutting it. So the company is changing one type of male it made a bad decision on. It led to fewer eggs and lower hatch rates. Tyson is now switching back to the roosters it used before the change. Now, El Segundo-based Mattel is launching a toy take-back program. It's called Mattel Playback. You can recycle the toys your kids have outgrown, like old Barbies, Matchbox cars, and Mega Bloks, by printing a free shipping label and sending them away for reuse. The company's goal is to recover and reuse materials across all products and packaging by the year 2030. And with millions of dollars worth of airline flight credits set to expire soon, 2 lawmakers are pushing for carriers to extend them indefinitely. Senators Ed Markey and Richard Blumenthal sent letters to the main U.S. airlines asking them to keep flight credits valid indefinitely. They argue many people are still wary of traveling, and if there are no refunds, carriers should at least do the next best thing.
The airline should refund the price of their ticket. They're not doing that. The least that they should do is extend the expiration date of that ticket. The airlines don't want to do that.
The industry counters that while the number of passengers is on the rise, the levels are still below 2019. U.S. airlines are losing about $100 million a day, but they also received billions in federal bailout money throughout the pandemic. Thank you for watching KCAL 9 News at 9. Our next newscast is KCAL 9 News at 10. And don't forget, we are always on at cbsla.com. And here are the stories we're working on just ahead at 10. She caught him with a fist to the face. A woman walking out to the parking lot confronts a stranger sitting in her car. Now, what she says was going through her mind.
Buying hotel and motel rooms across the state. That's the governor's new plan to get thousands of people off the streets and into shelter. We have details on his billion-dollar plan.
Are people fans of the new vaccinated-only section at Dodger Stadium? I'm Chris Holmstrom. I'll have that story coming up.
You can watch CBSN Los Angeles 24/7. It's easy to find us, and it's free. One way to watch us is on our website, cbsla.com. Look for the red Watch button at the top of the screen. If you click on that, you're instantly connected to CBSN Los Angeles. You can also watch by downloading the free CBS News app. At the bottom of the screen is a live...
Hi there, and welcome to our weather forecast. Let's take a look at what kind of weather conditions we have around the globe. First, here in Asia, well, the low-pressure system that is responsible for numerous unsettled weather across areas along the Yangtze River here in China will shift a bit eastward, bringing more wet weather to the southern portion of Japan in the coming days. As you can see here, Kyushu Island will be hit particularly hard with some localized heavy to torrential, even extremely torrential levels of rain. But then as we get into Thursday, things are going to be largely dry. And then about the temperatures may have a high chance to trend higher constantly in the coming days, potentially reaching its peak on this Thursday or Friday. Then over to Europe here, as you can see here, the wet weather will shift gradually eastward in the coming days, targeting the central portion on this Wednesday. Then more locations in the east will be affected as we get into Thursday. And at the same time, you're looking at a small scope of heavy rain near the border between Germany and Czech Republic. And about the temperatures, with thick clouds and wet conditions in store, things will certainly trend a bit downward in the central and eastern portion. Then over to North America, as you can see here, unsettled weather will continue to favor the southeastern portion of the United States, with wet weather in store for areas stretching from Texas eastward to Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas, with some localized soaking downpours. But as of now, stay tuned for more city forecast.
बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम अस्सलाम वालेकुम زه محجوبین حسن جی تاسو ټول تاسو ستړي مشو یم روزه مو په خیر ترانسمیشن کې چې تاسو ګوري د روزي د اولنې ورځې نه د خیبر ټي وي په سکرین باندې او د خیبر نیوز په سکرین باندې د همیش په شان جی نن هم د خپل پروګرام آغاز هم د خپل ملګرو سره کوم او تھرو اوټ چې په دې ترانس
في شهر سبتمبر عام 1939 شهد العالم حدثا اهتزت له أرجاء المعمورة، فقد اندلعت الحرب العالمية الثانية بين بريطانيا وحلفائها من جهة وألمانيا من جهة أخرى، وانحازت إيطاليا الفاشية إلى ألمانيا، وأعلن موسوليني اصطفافه إلى جانب هتلر. وسط هذه الأحداث الصعبة بدأت المحادثات في مصر بين الراحل إدريس السنوسي والحكومة البريطانية لتأسيس جيش ليبي ينضم إلى قوات الحلفاء في حربهم ضد الإيطاليين في ليبيا، ويقدم لهم المعلومات والدعم عن طريق الأهالي مقابل منحهم الاستقلال وحق تقرير المصير. فتأسس الجيش السنوسي بالتاسع من أغسطس عام 1940. بعد هزيمة المحور بقيادة رومل في معركة العلمين، تقدم الجيش السنوسي صحبة الجيش البريطاني ودخلوا بنغازي وطرابلس بعد طرد الإيطاليين منها في نهاية عام 1942، كما تم طرد آخر كتيبة إيطالية من فزان بعد هجوم كتيبة فرنسية من قوات فرنسا الحرة بمساندة من قوات ليبية من إقليم فزان في فبراير عام 1943، لينتهي الوجود الإيطالي نهائيا في ليبيا.
بعد هزيمة إيطاليا في الحرب العالمية الثانية وخروجها من ليبيا سنة 1943 دخلت ليبيا مرحلة حكم الإدارة البريطانية في برقة وطرابلس والإدارة الفرنسية في فزان. هذه المرحلة استمرت لمدة 8 سنوات من 43 خروج إيطاليا إلى نهاية 51 وإعلان استقلال ليبيا.
campaign.
Hamas and
Islamic Jihad paid, and I'm telling you here, will pay a very heavy price for their belligerence. And here tonight, I'm saying their blood is forfeit.
The Arab League's chief strongly criticized Israel's airstrikes on the Gaza Strip, calling them indiscriminate and irresponsible. In the League's emergency remote meeting of foreign ministers, he said Israel was responsible for a dangerous escalation in Jerusalem. Clashes first erupted in the city between Israeli security forces and Palestinian visitors to Jerusalem during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan that began in mid-April. Israel controls the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which both Jews and Palestinians consider a holy site. The latest violence saw Hamas fire hundreds of rockets into Israel, killing 2 people between Monday and Tuesday. The Israeli military retaliated with the airstrikes, which health officials in Gaza say left 30 people dead and over 200 injured. In Washington, White House spokesperson Jen Psaki repeated calls for both Israel and Palestine to take steps in preventing further escalation.
The president's support for Israel's security, for its legitimate right to defend itself, and its people is fundamental and will never waver. We condemn ongoing rocket attacks by Hamas and other terrorist groups, including against Jerusalem.
She said the U.S. wants a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and it was the only way to ensure a just and lasting peace in the volatile region. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has also weighed in. In a statement on Tuesday, he called on Israeli security forces to exercise maximum restraint. He said indiscriminate rocket launches by Hamas towards Israel's population centers are unacceptable. The UN Security Council will meet privately on Wednesday to discuss the ongoing violence. The Financial Times says U.S. President Joe Biden has chosen a former member of the Obama administration as ambassador to Japan. Rahm Emanuel is a former congressman who once served as chief of staff in the White House. He was also mayor of Chicago. He was criticized at the time over his handling of a fatal police shooting of a black teenager in 2014. Emanuel has close ties to Biden. Earlier speculation said the 61-year-old might be tapped as the transportation secretary or ambassador to China. The post in Tokyo has been vacant since Bill Hagerty left office in July 2019. Strengthening the U.S.-Japan alliance while China poses growing geopolitical threats is expected to be a priority for the next ambassador. Next to one of Japan's biggest challenges, improving gender equality and increasing diversity. For the first time, the executive board of one of Japan's most prestigious universities has achieved gender parity. NHK World's Aizawa Yuko spoke with one of the new University of Tokyo executives to find out how the school hopes
locaux. 6 000 migrants débarquant en jour, la machine d'accueil tient à peu près le coup. Mais si 3 000 à 4 000 personnes arrivent, que faisons-nous?
Des chiffres qui ne cessent d'augmenter en 2021. Selon le ministère de l'Intérieur, près de 13 000 personnes ont débarqué sur les côtes italiennes depuis le début de l'année, contre 4 200 en 2020. L'Italie a donc été sommée de réagir au plus vite. Le Premier ministre Mario Draghi, déjà confronté à la campagne de vaccination, doit faire face à une nouvelle problématique. Une aubaine pour ses opposants politiques qui n'ont pas tardé à s'emparer du sujet.
Avec les millions d'Italiens en difficulté, nous ne pouvons pas nous permettre de nous occuper de milliers de clandestins. Nous lui demandons que l'Italie se comporte comme l'Espagne, la Grèce et la France, qui n'attendent pas l'Europe, mais défendent leur territoire par eux-mêmes.
L'Italie doit maintenant compter sur une aide extérieure. Les accords de Malte de 2019, censés permettre la redistribution automatique des demandeurs d'asile, sont toujours interrompus à cause de la crise sanitaire. Rome compte désormais sur le prochain Conseil européen qui aura lieu à la fin du mois de mai pour les réactiver.
En Afrique du Sud, le variant indien commence à inquiéter les autorités sanitaires. 4 cas d'infection à ce variant ont été détectés, une découverte qui préoccupe alors que la saison hivernale débute dans ce pays, d'autant plus que l'Afrique du Sud est en retard dans sa vaccination. Pretoria a dû suspendre cette campagne début février à cause notamment de l'inefficacité du vaccin AstraZeneca contre le variant sud-africain. Et on en parle justement de cette situation en Afrique du Sud avec Alain Sanyua, médecin généraliste, en direct de Johannesburg. Bonjour Alain Sanyua, merci beaucoup d'être avec nous en direct ce matin dans la matinale d'RT France. Situation préoccupante en Afrique du Sud, expliquez-nous pourquoi.
Pour le moment, il n'y a pas de problème. Bon, il y a quelques cas du variant indien, mais la situation n'est pas encore inquiétante. Il y a que quelques cas, 3-4 cas des Indiens qui ont débarqué, qui étaient positifs avec ce variant, mais on nous a dit qu'il ne faut pas encore paniquer.
Il y a une communauté indienne. Il y a une communauté indienne également assez forte en Afrique.
Oui, très grande communauté indienne. C'est un bateau qui transportait du riz de l'Inde et il y aurait quelques personnes qui ont débarqué qui étaient positives avec ce variant.
Comment est-ce que l'Afrique du Sud fait face à la crise sanitaire? Y a-t-il encore des restrictions et est-ce que la campagne de vaccination est satisfaisante?
Il y a très peu de restrictions pour le moment. Nous nous attendons à la 3e vague. La campagne, comme vous l'avez dit, a été interrompue avec l'AstraZeneca. Le Johnson & Johnson a été interrompu momentanément et la campagne de vaccination va reprendre la semaine prochaine.
Alors, est-ce qu'elle a suffisamment de vaccins, l'Afrique du Sud, pour vacciner sa population?
Bon, pas du tout. Nous sommes en retard même par rapport aux pays d'Afrique, le Zimbabwe et le reste de l'Afrique, à cause de cette interruption.
À cause des interruptions
Oui, à cause du variant sud-africain qui était résistant à l'AstraZeneca. Et puis le Johnson Johnson, comme vous le savez, il y avait des réactions de coagulation. Donc la campagne avait été interrompue et les commandes arrêtées, mais bon, tout a été repris. On espère recommencer la semaine prochaine.
Est-ce que l'Afrique du Sud...
un vaccin que le personnel médical jusqu'à présent.
Est-ce que l'Afrique du Sud bénéficie du programme COVAX?
Je pense que oui. Je pense que oui. Vous savez, l'Afrique du Sud produisait ses propres vaccins jusqu'en 2001 et ça a été interrompu parce que le coût était trop cher, c'était moins cher d'importer les vaccins. Donc ils vont probablement recommencer à fabriquer le vaccin en Afrique du Sud, mais ça va prendre du temps évidemment.
Ouais, ça va prendre du temps. La levée des brevets a été actée par le président américain. C'est une bonne nouvelle?
Oui, c'est une très bonne nouvelle. Maintenant, je ne sais pas, ça va prendre du temps à tout relancer, effectivement. Donc, nous allons voir. En attendant, les vaccins sont sur le point d'arriver et d'être acceptés par le conseil médical, pharmaceutique, et ils vont relancer la campagne de vaccination la semaine prochaine.
La saison...
Je pense à peu près 5% des personnes ont été vaccinées seulement.
Oui, c'est pas beaucoup. La saison hivernale approche. Est-ce que ça aussi, ça peut compliquer les choses?
Et c'est ça le problème. Nous sommes la troisième vague va bientôt commencer. Il y a une augmentation du nombre de cas, mais ce n'est pas énorme.
Qu'en est-il des campagnes de dépistage? Est-ce que c'est satisfaisant ou pas?
Pas vraiment. Je pense qu'à peu près que 10% de la population qui a été dépistée, ce qui est très bas. Mais on dit qu'il y a 40% de la population.
مشکلاتشون رو بگم که بعدا براشون مشکلی پیش نیاد.
بله قابل درک. بله.
بابت پرسنل هم اگر اعتراضی بکنن خیر مستقیم مقاومت بساش ایجاد میکنن به کسا کارشون ایجاد مقاومت میدن چیزی که برای بقیه پرسنل هم هست نه فقط منحصر بشه به بیمارستان بقیه افراد هم به همین ترتیب عمل میکنن. این همه مزاحمتایی که میبینیم هر جا دختری که ما آمارش شکایتش رو میبینیم اصلا این دفاتر خدمات الکترونیکی وحشتناک شده اینقدر مردم مراجعه میکنن برای شکایت و برای تدبیر حقوقیشون برای این ملایماتی که من پسرم کنار خیابون داشته رد میشده دیگه هرچی گرفتن گفتن تا مریض عجیبشون چاقو کشید برداشتن از شهر تهران که نهارمکی بردنش تا برای امورخونه‌های اطفال سمت آینده شهر بعد اصلا متن شکایت این در سیستم وجود نداره میگن من آقا باید متن شکایت اینو ببینم چه کار کرده اینا دیگه نمیشه متن شکایت در سیستم باشه من نمیدونم چی باید جواب به این قضیه باشه.
بله متاسفانه این هم هست. آقای امیری بسیار بسیار سپاسگزارم از شما که حالا در کنار موضوع و مشکلات و معضلات پرستاران اشاره به مشکل خودتون کردید. بله این داستان هایی که میشنوید واقعیت داره. ما مرتب پیام های مختلفی از اتفاقات عجیبی که میفته، بی سامانی، بی سر و سامانی، نابحساب کتابی، یعنی اصلا هیچ چیز عجیب غریبی در جریان حالا این کرونا هم دامن زده، اوضاع رو بدتر کرده و البته شاید بهانه خوبی هم دست مسئولین و حاکمین داده که تمام ضعف‌های خودشون رو از این طریق توجیه بکنن، ولی امیدوارم که مشکل امثال آقای امیری و فرزندشون حل بشه و دوستان پرستار هم همینجور بتونن در واقع روزهای بهتری رو در پیش ببینن. قبل از اینکه یه کامنت بخونم، یک نظر شما رو بخونم و بعد هم یه فایل صوتی بشنویم، این رو هم خدمتتون عرض بکنم که نایب رئیس شورای عالی نظام پرستاری اعلام کرده که پرستاران در خط مقدم مبارزه با کرونا بوده و بیشترین حضور بر بالین بیماران را داشتند و از این نظر آسیب پذیرترین گروه جامعه هستند. راست میگه، واقعا یک پرستار بیش از یک دکتر با بیمارها سر کار داره. دکتر میاد ویزیت میکنه میره، بر پرستار باید کنار اون بیمار کرونایی حضور داشته باشه لحظه به لحظه. بعد در ادامه گفتن که با این حال همچنان هزاران پرستار در کشور موفق نشدند در قبال
出发的人都被当出去了。
由国中端的服务队来协助做午餐便当以及隔板的发放。那学生会在原市场用餐，采用多功能防疫隔板。
学生拢做好势，有专人送便当来，所来提青色这多功能的隔板直接动起来。因为疫情的关系，台北市针对着各种会考有新做法。
我们这个是 M 型的多功能的防护桌垫。那除了这个用餐隔板之外，它还可以当做平时的桌垫，也可以当做这个切割板。所以烤完以后，因为它还具有环保功能，可以继续使用。
除了隔板，还有5大防疫的规定。考生入来的时阵，就是爱实名制，望体温手都爱消毒。考试的时阵，自头到尾拢都爱挂嘴掩，家长袂使陪考。教室内底放冷气，食饭袂使讲话。
考生来到考场，那如果说明显这个温度太高了，或者是有一些比较咳嗽等等，那我们因为每个考场都有护理师，我们会做这个专业的判断。那像这种可能有传染之虞的，那就送医。
特别设服务队代替家长照顾考生。前一天台北市宣布毕业旅行，甲校外教学拢停，有2个学校600外学生当咧中部旅行。
那这2个学校已经出发的，当然我们都有掌握，掌握它在这个行程当中的最严谨的防疫的一个措施。那如果他们能够回来，当然也是一个可以考虑，但是原则上我们不去强迫他。
已经咧毕业旅行的爱互伊办结束，但是所来全面禁止。除了学校以外，大众运输系统嘛拢提升防疫的级数。
那我们在市区公车的部分呢，我们现在就是针对乘客接触比较频繁的，像座椅扶手、扶杆拉环那个下车铃这些，我们每班次回到场站之后，会全面做一个消毒动作。
就是人流的部分，目前没有管制，但重点在要把口罩，就是戴好，全程一定要戴好口罩。
坐阮车厢人数暂时无管制，希望人客嘴掩挂好好，因为疫情愈来愈严重咯，大家家己拢爱注意。民视新闻台北报道。
甲看南台湾嘛加强防疫，伫今日这台南市长黄伟提达到火车头来实在消毒的作业。另外，还有台南市的棒球场，即摆防疫嘛升级，观众是采取梅花座，禁止食物件，也有阿里山的铁路，我若比较办理，当时火车要载的人数，我若减少了。
环保局的成员伫咧火车头内外四界拢着喷药消毒，尤其上接绑着的椅仔甲换手等等，连车站外50公尺的范围拢着来消毒。
小心匪谍就在你身边，现在是变成小心确诊者就在你身边，用这样的一个规格跟用这样的心情来防疫，我觉得其实或许会有一点效果。那以前叫做保密防谍，现在叫保命防疫。
台南市长黄伟提带头来视察消毒。国内疫情2级的警戒，台南市府是总动员啦。
我们今天场内全部禁止饮食，所以里面也没卖东西。对，所以如果你们要吃东西的话，可能要帮我在外面先吃完。
要入来到球场看比赛，一寡食米拢袂当炸。疫情本土的案例爆发，台南棒球场防疫做甲真严格。
担心就是严重到甚至就是像区
大概去年4月刚开打那个时候状况，就是不能，就是闭门比赛这个状况。
就是勤洗手，口罩还是要戴好啦。观众的座位拢爱让较开咧。嘛，着爱挂嘴嗡，袂当食物件。资本统一师推出的这个庙宇柜的主题活动，虽然照常举行，但是所有的美食单位拢着暂停。这是嘉义阿里山森林铁路每一个车厢拢着消毒，3条铁路支线的乘客拢着来减少。
各班次列车由350人降为250人，快木车厢则由200人降为160人。
武汉肺炎疫情搁压起来。各县市拢点动起来，也希望民众配合，防止疫情拓开。民视新闻综合报道。
再来社会消息来关心，新北市有一个铁道通缉官，透早中外骑车才2岁祖囝出去外口的时阵呢，煞互警方拦查，也毋过伊煞无顾祖囝，还搁伫咧骑车，竟然呢是冲撞警察逃走。另外一个警察看到以后，马上跳上伊的机车，坐伫后座来阻止。毋过被弄的警察原来对方明衫穿，伊也是无要停车，是一直到当心无稳才摔落来。才互掠着，所以包括警察，也阁有一对通缉官朋友囝，拢有着伤。
锁定一路边穿桥仔色衫的通缉官，关键骑去头前砸车，毋过跳倒摆的人跳动动警察车，搁弄入去正平行啊！另外一名员警随跳去车顶，被弄着的员警爬起来了后嘛，随伫咧后壁叫。
停车！停车！
警方对方开枪，结果团内查某囡仔咧哀的声，原来相关的乌多派顶悬，竟然搁载2岁的细汉查某囝。代志发生伫新北市淡水区细叶的窃盗通缉犯，12报名1点外载2岁查某囝，互警方锁定追查，洗出来关警挡伫咧伊头前，想要到细叶的查甫人竟然挡警察逃走。另外一名姓杨的关警随跳起咧后座要甲阻挡，被弄着的关警对方开3枪，细叶的查甫人就被勒残。伫事发现场，警用的乌多派倒伫路边，另外一边白色的乌多派过当看到裤骹有碎片。
因为重心不稳而跌倒，造成他自己本身还有我们同事以及他的幼女均有受伤。那3人呢，经送医包扎之后没有大碍，顺利逮捕。全案呢将依窃盗通缉、妨碍公务以及伤害等罪嫌移送法办。
查甫人被通缉，报名搁骑车载查某囝拍走，当着警方竟然无顾查某囝安危，加出动警察，好佳在查某囡仔敢若受到轻伤，毋过这道老爸，互警方真害头。民视新闻新北市报道。
在危险的开车画面，来看伫南投刷出现讲马路三宝的危险驾驶。有民众开车经过草屯镇太平路一段时阵，刷了发现讲头前有一台自小客车，咱逆向行驶咧，所以就来试喇叭，甲伊警告。无想到讲对方毋定是无要插伊哦，颠倒转是对伊来闪大灯咧，所以算好即个驾驶来一度怀疑讲，敢是家己开毋对啊？
对面的白车哪会遮白目，惊着车道搁四大灯。对面这个白车直直驶过来，只好赶紧甲试喇叭，搁四大灯。毋过对方搁毋切过到伊的车道，啊，两台车哪离哪近，一直到用要弄着的时阵，对面这台白车才乖乖啊驶转去。
汽车的话，违规超车的话，快双黄线、双白线超车不依规定的话，处罚新台币1200元到2400元的一个罚款。
这反向驶车根本是咧赌性命。居民讲，这最近为两线道混跨做三线道，可能是路况无熟才会安尼。
最近才改过本来是两线道，本来两线道，即摆就变三线道安尼。即摆算三线，因为算1等人要去用的较济啊。
驶车上路就要专心顶进，若是一个失角差，愿说家己无命，嘛会去害着别人。民视新闻综合报道。
疫情升温，所以台中市长罗秀燕伫下昼原来是在文化高中会考的考场，强调是袂当陪考哦。有家长伫校外门口就轰炸落来。北彰化是供水5天停2天，也毋过有部分的所在所有民众定钱，讲伊1礼拜当会当1天正常供水尔，是因为咧因的所在伫咧讲出来买啊，所以咧就无水啊，民众家己笑讲咧，敢若是亲像山顶的光明共款。
日本科技，台湾创新， 冻结洗净，洁净再升级。抑菌99.9，铜管、风扇、防霉防护，压缩机日本制造，日立变频冷气销售第一。
虞姬就是要玩沙很大，全台最多人玩的捕鱼机台，2万倍传奇宇宙，等你来捕获。星辰 Online。
把你的世界交给小林眼镜，全台超过500位通过国家考试院认证，用专业带你看见幸福。
头痛、关节酸痛，科方血止疼加强，止疼成分1.99倍，各倍胸威。
阿妈，你打拢好啊！
开红霞止疼加强。
现在配多焦镜片5折，消费满5000再送1000哦。因为用心，所以更好。口巴亚喜小林眼镜。
影像资讯爆炸，听经济崛起，新兴媒体 Podcast 月增百档节目等话题无禁忌，是否成传播理由？
就是因为它无法规范，所以大家认为它的无法规范，反而让大家觉得可以去听。
Podcast 听经济崛起，星期六晚间10点，你是新闻台，你是李彦航。
为你的健康继续加持，贵格大燕麦片多一吃，同时降低胆固醇，减少体脂肪，促进肠道蠕动，持续更有感。贵格大燕麦片。
台湾的目睭，珍惜。医生建议我在怀孕的时候补充益生菌，我选择娘家益生菌。
益生菌就像身体的守卫兵，我真心推荐娘家益生菌。潘教授20年来的结晶，突破再突破。单 TU101益生菌，台湾本土菌株，最适合国人体质。单一菌株，多重功效，好菌打你，健康体质。娘家益生菌，为您存好菌。请拨0809066888。
齐柏林镜头下的台湾之光，带来希望，充满能量。每一寸被珍惜的土地，每一个尽情努力的人，都是美丽的台湾之光。大金首创R32环保冷媒，地球暖化系数减少75%，臭氧层零破坏。我们一起让台湾之光再次耀眼世界。
齐柏林看见台湾，大金请秀台湾了。
心之所欲，无所不至。Subaru The All New Outback， 现在入主即享尊荣车主限量礼遇。
继续收看民事新闻，针对华航参诺富特发生本土群集感染的风波，民进党立委范云就航讲呢，伊进前有召开协调会，向交通部来施压，加期租金原由原本5天的居家检疫放宽到3天就好，才会来形成防疫的破口。也毋过，范云伫今仔日进一步来解说，讲开协调会是反映工会定情，互指挥中心会当了解，甲消息摕转去做专业的判断，希望外界毋通搁再喷政治的喙烂咯。另外，防疫指挥官陈时中也来表示着讲，这种无必要批评，其实即马拢无意义，因为即马上重要的就应该是全民动员，积极来做好抗疫的工作。
感谢你们守护国人的健康，祝福你们牧师节快乐。
国际护士节，医师出身的副总统赖清德到影片甲护理师致意，总统蔡英文嘛伫面前感谢护理师的辛苦，要大家坚守社区防线，袂当互护理师的辛苦放水流。不过伫前一天，总统面前换相片，宣传8月2被公投投死的无同意。无偌久，疫情指挥中心宣布疫情进入社区感染，张小康丢言批评全民烦恼的是防疫，你煞敢若想宣传公投莫同意。伊表示无同意这种行，就是一重点的态度。
那当然疫情要顾。公投的概念也要顾哈，所以我想总统他所看的绝对不是只有一个角落，那该重视的我们都一定要重视。
防疫甲公道拢爱顾，啊，毋过国民党伫面前阁批评本土疫情恶化，蔡总统敢若重视反公道。另外，这张图是讲民进党立委范云，讲其所检要放零3天 OK， 这是范云召开协调会以后计划，爱民进党出力范云，甲方要求后卡。
如果不是这样的专业的人，真的大可不必下指导棋，而哪一个委员开的协调会，请他说清楚、讲明白。
民意代表反映的是工会的陈情哦，那协调会提供的是一个平台，让指挥中心可以了解第一线机师的状况。陈时中部长已经说过不止一次哦，没有任何委员的关说。那现在这个时候讲政治施压跟政治关说，他践踏的是我们指挥中心的防疫专业。目前我们最需要的是戴口罩，而不是乱喷政治口水。
范云伫并且铺陈情函、会议通知甲会议记录，证明家己只是提供双向沟通，无需要政府安怎做。指挥官陈时中嘛甲到讲话，
各种不必要的批评在现在都没有意义。现在是大家要全民动员来积极抗疫的时候这不是开玩笑的这是一个非常严峻的时候。
但是中呼吁，毕竟疫情愈来愈严重，国家自治照拢无效。每日新闻台北报道。
再来上新的连线，咱做来看蔡文总统即马伫咧中常会进前有上新的重要发表谈话，所以看听看麦。
目前呢，防疫物资跟医疗的系统都是充足的，请大家放心。疫苗也会陆续到位，我们也会协调相关的部会和地方政府，共同强化防疫的措施。我也理解更严格的防疫措施难免影响大家的生活，也会让大家担心。但请国人同胞不要恐慌，我们一起用最严谨的态度、最大的警觉，配合指挥中心的指引来防疫。我也要提醒大家，因为过去我们团结防疫，才能够一起度过危机，也让台湾的防疫成绩被世界看到。此刻的挑战依然严峻，请大家提高警觉，遵从指引，相信我们一定能够团结度过挑战。我也要特别提醒大家，这段期间会有一些来路不明的讯息、假讯息，请大家收到有疑虑的讯息的时候，请快查证，不要轻易的转发。我也会请指挥中心加强正确信息的宣导，请大家务必提高警觉。过去1年，我们全民同心守住疫情，未来1年，我们更要守住台湾，保持稳健的经济成长，继续在国际舞台上发光发热。团结防疫守台湾，相信在大家通力合作之下，我们能再次度过这一波疫情的挑战。谢谢大家。
谢谢蔡英文主席。那一个各位媒体朋友，我们后面还要看。
好，各位乡亲，头先所看到的是蔡文总统伫咧民进党中常会进前的重要谈话，针对目前的疫情升温，大家感觉真紧张。蔡总统来表示讲，目前的物资是有够，大家唔免伤紧张，上重要的是大家团结做伙，来加强防疫的工作。希望咱这个方法我来当顺利来通过。另外，继续来关心伫咧拜二下晝发连玉里所发生的交通事故，一辆货车准备要倒弯，要去对向的加油站来加油，没想到讲后壁有一台白色的轿车，可能是因为车速上过紧，未互动车，抓去弄到小货车，造成货车出来导火烧起来。加在这场车祸，并无影响到附近的加油站。双方的驾驶拢有淡薄仔受伤，也毋过咧肇事原因，也佮由台警方做进一步后续的厘清。
一台青色的货车，敢若是要我入个加油站，向一台白色的轿车按后壁干动落去，货车煞断咧烧起来，因为伫加油站边仔有人随去报警。一台白色的轿车，车头规个密密麻麻，若是迄台青色的货车，车道规个拢翘起来，涂骹阁有小鬼魂。
我车子要去加油，就是慢慢开这样，我有打方向灯，我准备要切进去的时候，他就从我后面撞上去了。
拜二早起发生伫花莲玉里，一台货车要倒滑入去加油站，后壁的轿车可能是驶伤凶，维护动按货车甲弄落去，货车团咧规个烧起来，轿车的驾驶手去弄着，货车的驾驶手去烧着。
本分局同仁到达现场后，立即的做一个交通疏导，并且迅速的将伤者就医。那本案依照 A2 交通事故做一个受理。
因为加油站就伫边仔尔，货车的驾驶赶紧拍火，若是事故的原因，还阁等警方了解。民视新闻花莲报道。
甲看家己市有一台轿车开伫路里，也毋过煞无稳，开了无稳，有当时啊煞用正边，有当时啊煞用倒边，念咪紧，念咪慢，实在真奇怪，所以引起警察的注意要来拦查，也毋过驾驶煞无愿意停，电倒汤冲撞着另外一台轿车，也阁有2台奥多摆，造成骑奥多摆的民众咧卡着伤了后，伊逃离现场，也毋过警方也是捉伫后壁，驾驶快着了后，是伫另外一个路口弃车逃走，毋过最后是警民合作，也是甲伊顺利逮捕，煞伫车顶超出有驾驶证，也阁有 K 他命的残渣。
路口有真侪车拢咧等人青灯，雄雄一台白色的轿车撞过来，弄到一台轿车，佮弄到2台的奥多摆。伊佮硬要驶出去，警方看到赶紧掠过来，一台车段咧驶去另外一个路口，我袂过车偏就走。
你检查对了啊！我差一点就被他拨到了。哦，我吓死！你找我坐，拢个机会尔，你请往边来，他不能按照了。
哦。
对了，这边有一个。你干嘛？等一下。
有个警察骑奥多摆，有个用走的一直掠，嘛有人骑奥多摆去斗掠，差不多100公尺的所在去掠到这个。紧念伊慢，引起警方的注意。想袂到警方要去关心的时阵，伊油门吹就做伊走，弄到人的车，尾啊车偏咧用走的。
挡住他跑的去路，这样。
为了要逃逸，他就目前已经是红灯停止的状态，他继续往前冲撞。是一位重机车的骑士，他是左脚踝那边有轻微的擦伤。
警方伫这个人的车顶敲到一支假使枪、一支开山刀，阁有其他面，发现讲伊阁是毒品的通缉犯，尾啊依照公共危险罪甲毒品通缉罪解送归案。民视新闻嘉义报道。
全靠关心用水的问题，因为即卖呢有所在欠水，中台湾是继续来进行分区的限水。第一北彰化是供水5天停2天，也毋过有部分的所在民众顶前。有一天进，这个尾端讲线的后壁，所以咧，逐摆水到因遐就拢无啊，所以对因来讲，都没水。
打开水龙头，一滴水都没有，洗手槽内堆了好几天的碗，根本无水可洗，整个社区。
我根本买来到现在完全空空的，因为水不够。
这是彰化县北彰化地区公五停二，这礼拜进入第6轮，办民生里3民路商圈位处于自来水管线末端，一开始就是公4停3，礼拜4傍晚才有水，没想到现在除了礼拜5一天水量正常外，6日一3天水压宛如涓涓细流，居民指控社区根本变成了公6停1。
上礼拜说只来
礼拜5。
只来礼拜5啊？
对啊。
啊，你有打电话去水公司？
无效，这区的人偌济人大，你会加几趟啊来？我们有征求啊，可是他们跟我回答的是说，问题不是水桶的问题，是没有人来用车子载水来的问题。
生活用水只能从供水站装水来用，停水期间也只能厚着脸皮到亲友家借水洗澡，民众自嘲像是3等公民。
我们做一个压力的观测那观测跟它的送水的时间是不是它的压力的变化？那我们会后续来做一个供水调配。
水公司解释，台中原本每日支援北彰化供水8万吨，水情吃紧后减量成6万吨，加上管线末端的影响，他们只能尽量增设加水站，减少民众不便，主要还是拜托老天眷顾，赶快下雨。民视新闻李文华彰化报道。
甲 看有车手行掠着，这是桃园一间银行，有人讲要提领警示小户的钱，所以行员发现了后，感觉奇怪，就马上来进行通报，所以警察就赶到现场来问这个车手到底是安怎。这个检察官白查讲呢，是有客户汇钱给伊，了毋过其实伊毋知影是伊讲的白查话，早就互人知影咯。因为伫咧屏东的被害人，伫咧半小时、半点钟进前，就已经报警处理了，所以最后检察官同传警察局来移送法办。165打了，那有去内埔分局报案。
是，好了解。
看到警察到位，银行的行员甲警察讲代志的经过。
这个钱啊，是谁汇给你的？这个赖先生是谁？我客户啊。
看警察来问汇款的来源，这个车手佫讲这是客户的汇款。
经巡逻员警到场了解，发现是一名被害人半小时前由屏东汇入款项至该账户。
拜二下晡，桃园警福派出所接到辖区的银行行员通报，有一个姓卢的人要领警示户头内底的钱，警察来现场了解情形。其实，伫咧半点钟久前，屏东的被害人就接到嫌犯的电话，对方讲是因孙仔叫伊汇20万去一个户头，被害人的朋友甲伊提醒，伊才去报案。
一名诈骗集团之车手欲提领该款项，现场员警了解过后，依逮捕，并移请侦办。
加在行员有警觉，才无互诈骗集团领到钱，假亲戚朋友的名义来诈骗，虽然是拘捕啊，但是咱嘛是爱说理，才袂向骗去。民视新闻桃园报道。
出来社会消息，继续来关心，伫咧台北市传出有几件黑帮抢警劳动，有抓到这个是简姓参陈姓男子为首的不法集团，带转来10万85个人，其中也阁有2个人捌参加过这个翕国片，并且有人呢也阁有讲伊家己捌涉及到台警察的中山联名的成员，用这种方式互被害人感觉听到伊的名声就会惊吓。
远警全副武装，气氛严肃紧张，指导犯罪集团据点抓人。这群以陈姓主嫌为首的黑帮分子，专做逞凶斗狠、霸占营业场所等事，恐吓被害人，借此收取保护费。当中2名小弟还曾参与国片以黑道取材的电影拍摄，担任领演，大方 PO 脸书分享炫耀，住处也摆了多顶大甲妈出巡的帽子，只是坏事尽做，马祖不会慈悲保佑。黑帮嚣张，警方全力扫荡，还有不法暴力集团假借各种事端设局坑杀被害人。当中小弟还自称是涉及台北杀警案的中山联盟成员，想借此让被害人害怕，恐吓取财。
全力打击黑道帮派以近期执行了2次的扫黑工作，查缉了2名的治平专案对象，有决心也有能力全力打击黑道帮派。
台中警方接连2波扫黑专案，一共逮捕涉案85人，全力扫荡黑帮暴力零容忍。民新闻陈李波记台中报道。
今日是国际护士节，台参女性文化代表就选伫这个时间点来献开讲是台湾的蓝丁格尔单喙局的纪念代表。单喙局毋但是创办着台学校，伫退休了就发起妇女台湾民主运动。刚才伊就当局致辞的时阵讲，伫美国的时阵，我参单喙局有活动，深深受到伊的鼓励。
请节目打开布幕，揭开台湾的南丁格尔陈翠玉的地标，纪念这位台湾妇女之母。监察院长陈菊更感佩陈翠玉，即使人在海外，依旧心怀台湾，参与民主运动。
到美国，到纽约，包括到华盛顿 DC， 在那个地方认识陈翠玉女士。她是我的忘年之交，参与台湾民主运动的发展，她给我们很多很多的鼓励。有荣幸呢，把她请到家里，住在我家里，大概有2-3天，我不太记得是多久但是有2-3天。那在这个时间呢，我是觉得那个是我很大的一个收获。我能够有今天呢，真的是受到陈翠玉女士是有过的当 当初的对我的开导。
理事董事长王明玉也谈起在美国的时候，深受陈翠玉的鼓励。陈翠玉1917年出生，1947年成为台湾首位2度拿到 WHO 奖学金的人。1949年更筹办台大医院护理系，创办台大护校。陈翠玉退休后，发起妇女台湾民主运动，也因此被列入黑名单，多次奔波才回到台湾。1988年病逝于台大医院，享年72岁，一生为护理界奉献。
已经设置了12座女性文化地标。刚刚陈举院长讲的，就是25淑女墓。那这些故事，鼓励或者是代代相传哈。
选在国际护士节这一天，台大医院院长吴明贤、台湾首位护理学博士于玉梅一起来感谢陈翠玉对台湾护理史的贡献，也要为护理人员加油打气。民新闻这位黄念成报道。
相关的消息来关心，受到疫情升温的影响，伫今仔日股市原来是落甲真惨，所以真侪人较紧甲股票卖出去，结果台积电伫盘中一度大落超过9%，也搁有咧台股崩盘是1417点。后来伫台积电尾盘进场修炼的即个情形之下，指数是159,902点来收盘，跌落去680点，这原来是创下收盘破第2次的即个纪录，加险收自半年线155,566点的关卡。这是今仔日股市上新的情形，所以咧股市大浪，并且咧防疫嘛爱特别紧张。台中市长罗秀的咧站嘛来到台中市的文化高中，是查高中会考的考场。市长讲咧，会考是袂当陪考的，家长若到学校门口口，都要防查得来咯。
若是考生被发现体温超过37度半以上，有发烧的症状，就要入去隔离备用的考试场加开考试。
防护面罩或者是护目镜，然后戴口罩、穿隔离衣，然后戴手套。
监考吗？
监考、监视老师，防疫市场的。
隔离备用的考试场有一间教室，敢来当坐5个人。监考老师嘛爱穿规套的防护装备，讲是监考，倒不如讲是注意考生的身体。
帮忙张开用餐隔板，用餐期间请勿交谈。
考生用餐爱用纸板凹做模字形，保持距离较安全。因为疫情紧张，参加各种会考的考生，为入去校门到出去，家长拢袂当陪咧。
家里有时候都会